The Minot City Council once again put off making a final decision on whether to give the police department the green light to implement a citywide license plate reader service, or LPR. At an earlier meeting in April, Interim Police Chief Dale Plessis proposed a system where cameras would be mounted on poles around the city to take a photo of vehicle license plates. He said it's to improve public safety, locate potential crimes, and find the last whereabouts of a missing person. Plessis presented a draft policy to council earlier this week at their request, and council members made amendments. One of those changes came from council member Paul Pittner, like ensuring LPR would not be used for general surveillance and officers should not access it without a specific reason. Pittner also suggesting all data not linked to an active criminal investigation be deleted after 30 days, since civil liberties were a big concern during the first proposal.
God forbid I ever have the experience of a child being abducted, of a loved one, an elderly loved one being lost or straying out, with dementia, which have been real concerns of a lot of families in our community. And putting these things in place to enhance the safety of our citizens, to enhance the safety of our officers when responding to calls.
Councilmember Lisa Olson also said the Ward County Sheriff's Department already uses this system, as well as Bismarck. But Alderman Mike Blessum spoke in opposition, saying this system allows for the government to track citizens.
The state went this path. BCI wanted to put these on every DOT standard throughout the state. And they used the same thought processes. Oh, it'll help with illegal immigration. It'll help with this, it'll help with that. Do not trade freedom for safety. We never win that equation, ever.
Blessum also said they're not sure if this is something the city can fund at this time. Pittner moved to table the discussion, which passed in a 4-2 vote, with Blessum and Scott Samuelson voting no. Now, it's unclear when the council will be taking up the issue again.